We have to talk about Erik Ten Hag's future. I think the end of his second year obviously is right upon us. United have been a travesty all round. In pretty much every single metric it's possible to be one. Understatement of the year, I know. But his future is a massive topic for serious discussion. All of the newspapers seemingly are looking at the potential options. There seems to be a bit of a narrative emerging that he's either going to be sacked or given a new contract, which tells me no one has got a clue what's going to happen with Erik Ten Hag. So I thought, let's look into what the overarching situation is, try and be objective as possible about it, and see where it leaves us at the end. Now, where do we lie with him? With the FA Cup, happening this weekend, United have got a big conundrum, I think. There are countless factors in why this season has been a failure, which it has. And I think even winning an FA Cup would still be like, okay, you won an FA Cup, but, will Ten Hag be the person that has to take the fall for this, or is there a collective responsibility? Right, lads, gather around. You have heard me banging on about Manscaped for ages, mainly discussing the virtues of a well-trimmed ball bag. But today we're going to move a little bit north, and something that you might have actually seen, my beard. Manscaped isn't just a master of below-the-belt grooming, they have conquered beard territory too. And I know this is groundbreaking news, let's delve into the details. Now, we are all well acquainted with Manscaped's brilliance for the downstairs department. They've been many a saviour of many a date night and many a ball bag. And you know the Lawnmower 4.0 by now. I'm not going to tell you about any of the features for it, because if you don't know them, then you're never going to know them, right? It's a certified hero for the nether regions. But they're here for the beards now as well, and they've got the beard hedger. It is a cordless miracle worker that is both tough and gentle. It takes down facial forests in a single stroke. It's got 20 different lengths of settings. It gives you the power to totally customize your beard without cluttering up the bathroom and having a million different attachments. Now, they've also got another member of the band, and it's the Handyman. That is a dual-sided foil razor that has got your back, whether it's your face, whether you're going clean shaven or just tidying up a little bit around the neck. It is the epitome of comfort in the shaving world, and it's got a seamless and nick-free experience. So listen, if you want to give your beard the VIP treatment that it absolutely deserves, get over to manscaped.com, use the special code Howson. You're going to get 20% off and free shipping. And while you're grooming the jewels, let's not neglect the crown. With Manscaped, who said beauty had to be a pain? Let's keep it neat and tidy, top to bottom. Let's start with the pros. Sticking with the project. Now, we haven't stuck with a project for very long, and even 2 years, which is what all of the rest of the managers that we've had have done, it's not very long. There's been too many managers now that have all been given not enough resources, and therefore not enough time, certainly not enough resources. And okay, there's been money spent, but the money has been spent in a stupid way. When you look at the three right wingers that Manchester United have got, and you can include four if you want to throw Garnacho into the mixer as well. But when you've got Sancho, Ahmad, and Anthony signed at the cost of somewhere in the region of about, 180 million across the three of them, when you're absolutely desperate for other positions, it shows me just the lack of intelligence in signing those players. We allowed Johnny Evans to go for peanuts and signed Harry Maguire for 80 million. You might not have needed to sign Harry Maguire for 80 million if you'd have just kept all the Johnny Evans. There's countless. Signing Mason Mount for 60 million last season, when obviously he's got injured and that affects it, but could we have not spent that elsewhere? You spent 70 million on Casemiro when you didn't want to spend a tiny bit more on other players that would have been here for maybe a decade. The lack of forward thinking when it comes to Manchester United signings is why people get to point at us and say, you've spent $1 billion, you shouldn't be this bad. You're like, yeah, I agree. And when you look at, okay, the big money striker signings, yes, we spent a lot of money on Højlund, we spent a lot of money on Lukaku, but then we spent nothing on bringing in loads of other strikers, whether it was Alexis Sanchez and the wages that he was on, whether it was Zlatan, whether it was Cavani, whether it was Cristiano Ronaldo for the second time. Where was the long-term planning in any of that? And that's why United have spent so much and have got cock all to show for it, really. So I think you have to say, And Jim Ratcliffe has literally acknowledged this part. No one's been successful with the structure that's been in place. He kind of like feels like he's about to say, so we got to give this guy time, right? Ten Hag showed a huge forward leap from the disaster that he took over with, which, Ole had to go at the time he had to go. That was the right decision at the time. And then Ragnick came in and was sort of just undermined on the basis that everyone knew he was here for a few months. And there's clearly bells in the squad. Some could argue that there's still bells in the squad. But the issues that existed then still exist now. Next season, it could bite us, but there's a reason that Ten Hag has been given an opportunity at Manchester United. And that first season, while it wasn't perfect, was better than a lot of admittedly quite good Premier League managers' first seasons. The second season, it completely fell off. And I think you can look into the injuries and say, well, okay, everybody gets injuries, not to the level we got there. There probably will be improvement just on the basis of availabilities next season, but it is a very low bar to beat. And is it enough? Now, you've also got to say this thing's here not his fault. Injuries have to be addressed. It's not his fault that we've had this unbelievable amount of injuries. And United have had horrendous luck when it comes to injuries as well. I think it'd be unfair to remove Ten Hag from his post with that as context. Look at the discipline. Every single manager we've had post-Fergie, each and every one of them has been thrown under the bus by this squad. And there's some players that have covered all of the squads, or most of the squads, and some players that are new. But fundamentally, there is a rotten culture at Manchester United. Managers have come out and told us that. Players who have left have come out and told us that. There's clearly things that have to be changed. So is that another thing that you put at Ten Hag? You asked him to come in and be a disciplinarian. He's come in and been a disciplinarian. That's pissed off some of the players who didn't want the disciplinarian. So are you then going to go side with the players again? That makes no sense to me whatsoever. If you bring in a guy to be a disciplinarian, you have to allow him to be a disciplinarian. There has to be a code of conduct. There has to be no favourites. The way he treated the likes of Ronaldo, Rashford, Garnacho, Sancho, I think there's been consistency with that from him. The whole Sancho reason, I think, is a prime reason for how he has kept his squad in check, or at least he's tried to keep his squad in check. Now, if he comes to the end of the season and he goes, okay, so I tried with him and 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 they're not having it, I want them fucking gone, then you have to listen to him. The guy has got a tough job. Trying to compete with the teams at the top of the Premier League, trying to transform a squad into one that's got the right stuff mentally. It can take a long time. Those players are not easy to uncover. You can't scout someone's mentality. You have to talk to people who know about them. You have to see what they're like. You have to find out what they're like in national team training to get a bit of an idea of them. Now, the wheels have fell off. Disciplinary actions do look like they're becoming a little bit ineffective. But I think he has to stay true to himself on this. Then you go, okay, who else? The rumours of Southgate and Potter terrify me. I'm going to be real with you. There's talk of Tommy Tuchel, but could he really do it? He's kind of fell out of everyone everywhere he's been. Now, I don't know enough about all of those situations to be able to confidently sit here and say, and the reason for that was X, Y, and Z. I don't know. I'm just stating the fact that he has. Now, there's some talk it could be De Zerbi. I don't feel like that's the case, but there is talk it could be De Zerbi. He'd be the most palatable out of the ones that we've been linked to, I think. And I think, most people still don't want him. In terms of the cons, it could be too late. It could be too late for him to turn it around because of how bad it has gotten. There's been some bad moments this season, and I would say some worse than the 7-0 beating we got at Anfield last season. The 4-0 at Palace really felt like it was the end. But that might not be the case. If next season there's a bad start, though, I think it'll become too noisy for anything. And does it all rest on an FA Cup final? It might be. And I don't know if that's the right thing to do. A cup final should not be... It's a results business ultimately, but you shouldn't be basing the long-term strategic planning on the football club based on an FA Cup final. And that's what worries me, is I feel like it might be. I feel like they've drawn a line in the sand and said, new contracts, comes with the silverware, you're getting a bullet if you don't. Because, one, you're up against Manchester City, not Hull City. And you've got probably a not even your squad available, let alone a strong squad available. So I think there's so many reasons why he's handicapped going into it a little bit. I don't know if it's a fair thing to put it all on the cup final. Now, I will state, I think there's been some issues with Ten Hag that he needs to fix, like he needed to fix our away form last season. The tactical stubbornness. You go back to that Fulham game. There's snapshots of us playing 5-0-5, formation with no midfielders. That was months ago. But only up until recently, the tactics had only altered slightly, and I don't even know if they've fully been altered or if it's just the personnel are occupying better positions than the previous personnel that was in those positions. Now, with the amount of injuries and the amount of players playing in unfamiliar positions, Ten Hag can't really be stubborn. And his interview basically said, I'm going to play this one way. And I don't know where I sit with that. I really don't. Because there's times that Manchester United should have adapted and we didn't. And the stats for this season are absolutely damning. Now, you can get mixed reading from some of them with context, but overall, there's some real bad stuff made from the numbers. 1.57 points per game, 47.06 win percentage, 1.69 goals scored per match, 1.65 goals conceded per match. Now, think about the amount of shots that we've faced as well. That tells me that, Onana's done all right, but we are 19th in how many shots we've faced. If you're going to be starting a new project, you're going to want to start it sooner rather than later. And that leads on from a little bit earlier. It's not just about, let's see how it goes. If you're starting a new project, there's so much ground to catch up on. Do you not want to get the new manager in ASAP? Does it make sense going beyond this week with essentially Ten Hag picking the transfers for next season? Is that why we haven't been linked with anybody just yet? Because they genuinely don't know? Or are you going to have this transfer committee that just gives the players to the manager? I'm not sure that's the best way to go with either. You just rinse and repeat and finding a manager that's maybe not right for us. So do you keep Ten Hag? How convinced are you? Because I don't know. I have no insight. No one's told me anything, which is good. Like the club are obviously keeping their cards close to their chest at the moment. I believe the reports from people who are speaking to those in the know who say it's entirely 50-50. But what's the criteria for him to be kept and what's the criteria for him to go? And if he does go, what's the plan for succession? It feels like they're putting a lot of emphasis on the FA Cup final, and I think that's wrong. I think that's wrong. Because you can fluke a win. We can get battered, and there can be an incorrect VAR decision that gives Manchester United the cup, and then you keep him on the back of that. What if we play really, really, really well, and the opposite happens where we get done by VAR? Do you sack him then? How does it make sense to do either of those things? I think you have to just make the decision now before you know the result of the FA Cup final and don't allow it to cloud your judgment. You have to say either you accept that Ten Hag is the right man and he's been dealing with injuries that has nothing to do with him and players that require removing from the football club so he can change the culture and bring in the right stuff. Or you say, I don't think he's the right man, and despite the injuries, I don't think he's the right man, and you bring somebody else in who can work to the system that you're putting in place. I think it's very, very clear. But I'm not the one making the decision here. And I don't have all of the information that I hope that they've got. And I hope that there's been conversations, honest, raw, deep conversations, where they've sat there and they've said, right, we see this as an issue. What's your response? That can be the shape of the team. Oh, right, well, actually, if we had Luke Shaw, this looks like this, and let me show you some videotape of how it actually looks when it's meant to work, this, that, and the other. I almost think he kind of needs to pitch for his job. And tell people, honestly, what's gone wrong. And I would hope that they can have an honest adult conversation with this. Allow him to take ownership for some stuff and allow him to apportion blame to things that are out of his control. And then there's some real football people involved there from Ineos. From Blanc to Wilcox to Barada to Ashworth, even though he's not in the building just yet. Between them, I would hope that they can make a proper decision, and that proper decision doesn't result in Gareth Southgate being Manchester United manager in August. Because that'd fucking blow. But anyway, there's the situation as I see it with Erik Ten Hag. I do want to know what you guys think, and where do you line up on this? Let me know in the comments. See you in the next one. Hey, thank you for watching the video. If you are new around these parts, then don't forget to subscribe. My channel is proudly supported by my community on Patreon. If you'd like to get a little bit of extra content, a Discord group, meetups, five-a-side games, weekly podcasts, behind the scenes, and even an occasional bit of transfer news as and when I get it, then for the price of a pint, you can show your appreciation for the content that we make and get some goodies for doing so as well. Check the link in the description or click the button right here. You'll also find all of my socials here too if you want to follow me on any of those platforms. Nice one.